told us, do not cry. But by the time they finished the tour, I can tell you, you cannot not cry. And for a person to have stood these sort of circumstances that are Robben Island, come out of jail, become a president, leave presidency, makes Mandela an icon and a saint. Now, why is this important? The generation we're speaking to, Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, and all these African heroes are nothing but textbook stuff. They can't relate. They can't relate to the struggle. But here in their presence is a person who rubbed shoulders with Winnie Mandela, Nelson Mandela. So what is missing in the Pan-African struggle is the story, a person who knows the story, to tell the story. And that's why this is important. You have started a journey together with the professor here. A journey to awaken this continent. Because somehow, and we must confess, during the apartheid, that is the portion that because you can speak truth to power. So what you have started today is a journey of these young who made a sacrifice so that it reminds you that you have an obligation. You have an obligation signal, because that is what we need in Africa. I have said, and I mentioned to you, your music is our music. The Nigerian movies, I don't want to tell you about it. They love them. So deep inside, all of us are the same. These boundaries are colonial boundaries that were placed there to divide us. And we must go back to the drawing board. With those few remarks, welcome to MAKUENI. It's a pleasure for all of us to welcome you here. I feel privileged as the governor to welcome you here. I traveled all the way to watch. Now I'll sit here in MAKUENI and listen to you. Man, to you young people, bliss it was to be alive at dawn, but to be young was very heaven. To be in the presence of Malema in MAKUENI County is very heaven. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Thank you. A big clap for the governor. All right, so let me recognize the presence of Professor Micheka, who was my Vice Chancellor. Please rise up. Jomo Kenyatta University. Some of these are your students here, Professor. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me also recognize a friend of Lukenya University, the CEO. Very much. Because of you, we have our chief guest here today. We don't take it for granted. He's also our platinum sponsor for our marathon. And yes, we do have a marathon next year in March, and we are looking for partners and collaborations in the African style. Let me recognize Her Royal Highness Joanne Yelbet. Please, this is your Royal Highness. Thank you very much. all the friends of the Board of Trustees who are here, and all of the other friends, even if I've not mentioned you, we don't take it for granted that you're here to support this wonderful cause. And so that I can finalize, Chief Guest and Chairman, we have our ultimate Pan-Africanist amongst us. Somebody who has dedicated her life to service. 30 years plus of educating young people, of supporting communities, of engaging with communities at all levels. I can't describe to you her love for the environment. And part of the reason why this setting was chosen, as remote as it is because of her belief that we will not rise as Africa if we leave anyone behind. And our rural setting cannot be left behind. We must focus our efforts here. Otherwise, we will never be able to feed ourselves as a continent. And this Pan-African lady, we are here because of her. All this is because of her effort. And I want you to please rise up and help me welcome our founder, our mother, our matriarch, Mama Mulwa Kasanga. Comrade Power. We celebrate you today. We do. She didn't want to speak, but we have to hear your voice.
God is good. And all the time. Today, I'm so happy. Malema, our son, like the governor said, is here. And we are going to listen to you. Our governor, our son, is here. We are going to sit. We have listened to him. Today we called you to launch the concept called Lukenya University. And you know, he couldn't speak because a lot of politicians also took a lot of time, you know, but he said, he gave us his speech. And he said, the belief that this corner can be something is the bringing our son Malema from the southern tip of the continent to here. Jimmy Wanjingi and all the others who are here, my chancellor from Boston. We are so happy today. You know, Jimmy, I was reading last night about the
Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. MC, thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that session that has just ended. I want to break the monotony of the speeches by inviting Kalimbo, one of our students, to give us a Shaili poem. Kalimbo, the stage is yours.
Shairi kichwa, muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Nawapa zangu salamu, Lukenya habari zenu. Kwa wale Waislamu, salamu aleikum yenu. Na ndugu wa Bwana Yesu, asifiwe Yesu wenu. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Ni jina la harakati ilozuka Amerika, ni moja ya mikakati ya kuunganisha Afrika. Kuja kwetu ni bahati, macho yalitufunguka. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Haki hasa za watu weusi, kujikomboa kwa dhiki, kukomesha unyanyasi, ipate kuondoka chuki pamoja na wasiwasi. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Kulinda utamaduni wa jamii ya Afrika, kukana ukoloni gandamizo la Mwafrika, janga la umasikini kikomo nalo kufika. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Utumwa ulisukumwa kusodhihirika tena, biashara ya watumwa binadamu kuuzana, mara moja ilizimwa, hadi wa leo hakuna. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha, na Mandela walikuwa kwenye chati na Kenya kwa dhati. Wako walokwenda jela kisa hizi harakati. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Mambo mengi walinga na maovu kuyasuta, hasa hili la ujinga wache kulikamata, wasiwe wenye kupanga vya wenye kwa wenye vita. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Afrika kujitawala, kuwa na wake uhuru, wakomeshe mbaya hila, ukatike msururu, uwe mwisho wa madhila, waishi wakiwa huru. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Na hapa yangu kalamu kifuniko naitia, imeisha yangu zamu, kikomo nimefikia, niliyowapa elimu vizuri kuitumia. Muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Muungano wa Afrika, mweusi apate haki. Mtunzi na mgani ni mie wako Joshua Kalimbo. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Kalimbo. That's our student. I want to invite, for the sake of those that don't understand Kiswahili, another narrative from Nyawira. A narrative from Nyawira. It's a short one. Then PLO, you prepare to take the stage. Let's encourage her. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
My letter for an Africa that is better. My heart hurting, aching, and bleeding. And I write this letter to you, stranger, to me, you are not and left her by the roadside. A young girl crying for help. Malema, please, take me out of this agonizing. Misery, misery with glory. And glory has served with plenty. I must take this letter to the church to judge the injustice. Hooray! Finally, somebody is listening to me and reacting to my lamentation. I hope this will be my revelation. Help! 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 Somebody! Anybody! Please help me! Oh no! Nobody can hear me. Judge, Julie, and the public at large. Before you very much, give me a chance to talk about my life. For my life is not right. This court is here for you. We will listen to you. Thank you, Your Honor. I am grateful, Your Honor. We value this future generation. We will treat them with caution and devotion, for they are the future of our Africa. I will say the truth. Nothing but the truth. I feel like being the hangman of my own self. But no one seems to offer any help. Mother! 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 My mother! Gone so soon to rest in the world of the spirit. My father! Lost so deep in the world of the mind and the spirit. Helpless and helpless. I am never cared for myself. I get help. He's the only help I get. Alpha, do this. When you are done, do that. And don't forget to do this. Guys, I am not a machine. I can easily afford a machine and kick you out into the streets. Your Honor, this is the kind of treatment I receive. Please, deliberate on my case. A very sad case. Sadness and sadness itself. In your courts, I find peace. You are a minor, not to be employed. Your employer must get his books. They should get off the hook. We will be on the look. Now I'm at peace. My heart is at peace. Now I'm in school. Life is good. Concentration on my education. Free of all that foolish nation. Walking towards my dream realization. A timeline in a weather presentation. A Lukenya University production. A Kodundo Island creation.
Thank you very much, Nyawira. We appreciate you. I want to take this opportunity because of the interest of time to invite Professor Patrick Lumumba to take the stage. Let's kindly celebrate. Let's celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You may resume your seat. Let me start by welcoming and appreciating my very good friend, the Commander-in-Chief of EFF, Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema. We do not take it for granted that you have taken time to be present with us here in Lukenya. we thank you. Permit me also to recognize present in the assembly the governor of MAKUENI, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Permit me also to recognize the Chancellor, the Pro-Chancellor, the Vice-Chancellor, and all senior academic staff and trustees of Lukenya University, not to forget the immediate past governor of MAKUENI, who was my teacher in first year, Professor Kivuda Kibwana. Because this is a Pan-African event, you will permit me to recognize Pan-Africanists who have taken time to be present with us this afternoon. I'll recognize them. They will rise and wave their hands, if only to demonstrate to those who are here and those who are watching online that this is Africa present in MAKUENI. Permit me to start as I do with my good friend and brother, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Antigua and Barbuda, himself from Trinidad and Tobago, Ambassador Wallace Williams. Permit me to recognize Yinka Abioe of Festac from Nigeria, accompanied by Grace, who is heading the Festac Festival of African Arts, and he is Kenyan herself. Alawi Kashim from the United Republic of Tanzania. Next to him is Chivala from the United Republic of Tanzania. Permit me also to introduce the Gabriel Selassie girls. Let's Eden and your sister rise all the way from Ethiopia to recognize Zakayo all the way from Hargeisa in Somaliland, to recognize Calvin Kaunda, who is from Lusaka in Zambia, to recognize my very good friend Nurdin Kajuma from Bukoba in the United Republic of Tanzania, to recognize Edwina Taylor, sometimes from Ivory Coast, sometimes from Sierra Leone, sometimes from Liberia, accompanied by her sister Yande Taylor, Gambia, Dubai, and to recognize my sister from Uganda, Nancy Linda Karembe, and to recognize from Nigeria and the United Kingdom, Dr. Kofo Basanjo Blackshire. To also recognize my very good friend, Carol Banks from Kenya, as I also do recognize Pauline Kea Chovi from Kenya, and Nelson Sechere, who also hails from Kenya, and the young men and women who belong to Free Kenya Movement, Bob Njagi, Nicholas Soyo, Mwalia Okumu, and Felix Wambua. All these are young Pan-Africanists who hold the view that in order to grow Africa, we must grow her from a totally different perspective, village by village. And they are here present. My friend Ouma is present in the assembly. And if I do not mention you by name, do recognize that you are appreciated this afternoon. Today is my good friend Selo Malema's day. And it would be inappropriate for anybody to deliver a speech of any kind. But what I will do, if only to contextualize this gathering, is to invite to the podium for no more than 4 minutes, because this is an institute, individuals who have started this particular journey by penning books, some of which will be left for this institute. Permit me, therefore, to invite the three of you to come forth, and you'll speak for 1 minute. Pauline Kea Chovi, who is the writer of Kigogo, which has been a set book for Kenya for the last many years. So you can see Kigogo is known Kigogo into English as the leader. And as I see my friend Ibrahim Sanka is also here, as I also now see Catherine Waweru. And I also invite Kofo Basanjo.
Test.
And just for 1 minute, to allow them to speak to their books. Kofo Basanjo, Dr. Kofo Basanjo is all the way from Nigeria, and his own father is a great Pan-Africanist, Olusegun Obasanjo. Where is Carol Banks? Just for 1 minute, before we go into the crux of the matter, say something about your book. Pauline Kea.
All protocol observed, I will take very little time. I think most, if not all of the students seated here have read Kigogo. Thank you. Kigogo was then translated by Professor PLO Lumumba to the leader, the English version. I hope that you will read the leader too. So I will just talk a little bit about the leader or the Kigogo. I wish I could speak in Kiswahili because it's in Kiswahili. But for and so very soon we will not have excuses to use English in such forums. So Kigogo, or the leader, is about leadership and leadership for the young people. The majority of you know what I am talking about. I will pick on a character. The young people here know a character called Sudi in the play. Sudi says, did you like Sudi? Did you like Tunu? Majoka. So Majoka is this evil leader. And so Sudi at some point, he just completed his university course and is actually looking for a job, and there are no jobs. So he uses his talent to survive, just like most African young people are doing. You use your talent, which is very right. Your talent, it is okay. Use your talent to do whatever that can make you survive. It is okay. So Sudi sits, and there's one of the young people who is not really awake. I mean, they're just asleep in some dreamland. So Sudi says, I am going to sculpture the history of this country. And then the other one says, in fact, he says, I'm going to write. The other one says, you cannot write the history of this country. You are not a writer. Then he says, if I am not a writer, I am a sculptor. I am going to sculpture the history of this country because it was not written well. So today, I tell you young people, if you are a doctor, you need to do your medical things afresh. If you are a historian, the history of Africa afresh. If you are doing business, do business in the right way, the African way. Do business afresh. If you are a farmer, remember our seeds. Plant African seeds. Do agriculture the right way. Do not write agriculture afresh.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you so
very
much.
Thank you very much. Let me now, for 1 minute, invite Carol Banks, who has written about ethical leadership. 1 minute. When you see me stand, it means you stop.
All right, Prof. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am privileged and all protocol observed. Private sector people, we mess up a lot of times when it comes to protocol, but I'm very excited to see Mr. Heda. He may not remember me, but I was a young nurse at the Nairobi hospital where he used to be a surgeon. And I'm very happy to see him because healthcare practitioners rarely get to speak in forums. And being a trained nurse, I took a journey of courage and I became a managing director of a Fortune 500 company. And everywhere I've been to, everybody asks me to tell my story. Top 40 under 40 2019, please, will you tell your story more to show young people that it can be done? And what a beautiful thing you did today, Prof, to have young people in a hall like this where I can actually have the courage to tell them that it can be done. But I wondered if I write my story of how I became a managing director of a Fortune 500 as a Kenyan young woman, how many people will be able to relate with that story? Maybe a few, maybe not too many. But if I coin it in a book that really addresses some of the issues that we are dealing with as Africans in Africa, and showing it that it can be done in the straight and narrow, like the teacher was just saying. I've read Kigogo, so I understand what she was saying. And Kigogo is basically leading ethically. And so I combined my story of where I come from, how I was brought up, the challenges I faced, my nursing career, the people that held my hand, because you should never really forget where you come from. Sorry, what did I say? Where I come from. And so, ladies and gentlemen, ethical leadership, creating a culture of trust and responsibility.
Thank you very much, Carol. And I don't want them to reveal too much about the book. You'll not buy it. So the whole idea is that you buy the book. Thank you very much. Let me now invite Domtila Mwanzia, who has written a book, Challenges Faced by Women Head Teachers.
Thank you, Prof. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. My name is Dr. Domtila Mwanzia. I belong to, I'm a lecturer at Lukenya University in the School of Education and Social Sciences. I'm the chairperson, Department of Education. I was moved for almost a year because those times in 1992, we were not being replaced very fast. I went through many challenges. My governor, I hailed from Galawa, and that time politics was hot and they were against women leadership. But I thank God I stood firm. I climbed the ladder to headship, where I faced more challenges when I started my education as a diploma in SNE, Bachelor of Education in Special Needs Education, and also I went for Masters in Education Administration. Then most of the people say, then she doesn't suit to be in the primary section. Let her move where she belongs, because she seems to be more educated for our younger children. So with all those challenges I face and other ladies, then I was moved to write this book. You can read it more when you purchase a copy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now permit me, before I call the speaker in a short while, to allow two people, 1 minute each, Yinka Abioye, for one reason. In 1966 in Dakar in Senegal, there was the Festival of Arts under the auspices of Leopold Sedar Senghor. 40 years later in Nigeria, there was Festac in Lagos, Nigeria, under the patronage of President Olusegun Obasanjo. Next year, there will be Festac in Kisumu from the 20th to the 25th day of May 2022. He is the man who has revived Festac after a hiatus of nearly 40 years in Zanzibar in 2022 and in Arusha in Tanzania in 2023. For 30 seconds only, say your piece.
30 seconds? Everybody, it's a pleasure to be here. I can't talk for 30 seconds. This is a punishment. What I'm going to tell you is this. Like Prof said, 45 years ago, a festival was put together to make all of us come together and know and understand one another. Guess what? We let it die for 45 years. It's back. It's every year going forward. It's Africa Month. The May is last week of May for all of us. And people, the next one is May 20th to 26th of 2024 in the wonderful city of Kisumu. I look forward to seeing all of you to celebrate who we are as people. Viva Africa.
You made it. Thank you. Very lastly, let me allow Dr. Kofo Basenjo Blackshear to speak to a book which I commend to all of you. Dr. Kofo.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try to stick to the 1 minute, and I'm going to hope I beat Prof coming to send me to my seat. So very briefly, I'm not going to introduce myself. If you've heard my name, I'm in a race against time here. This book was forged in the crucible of the COVID pandemic under the supervision of my father, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, former head of state of Nigeria. And the principle behind this book, Pillars of Statecraft, is essentially what are the ingredients required to build a strong nation state. As Pan-Africanists, what we need is that each individual African nation is as strong as it can be, and that together as a force and a block, we can write our own story. Madam Founder said to us to bring Africa out to the world. This book is about forging African nations so that they are strong and that as Africans we can thrive and then launch out into the world. Unleash our youth. We are the only continent that is growing. We need to unleash our youth who are healthy, who are educated, who are equipped as a force out there to take the world back and to take Africa and really launch it into a space where we have partnerships on our own terms. We're no longer a continent that has things done to it. We're now a continent that has partnerships and effective relationships where we own our narrative and we don't have our stories told for us by other people. And I think I made it.
Thank you. The other person who has written a book in absentia is Professor Suki Mandwa, a book called Sing Your Song. It is a book that I also commend to you. May I now humbly request you to resume your seats. And having done so, may I now have the podium to be brought. Typically, when one is invited to speak, long introductions are made. I normally interrupt those introductions because the very fact that we have invited Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema here in itself is a testament to the fact that we have searched throughout the world and we have arrived at the conclusion, the fact that he is a Pan-Africanist. It is not mine to talk about him. But when we talk about Pan-Africanism today, we are talking about Pan-Africanism in the context of those who preceded us. We are talking about Pan-Africanism reminding ourselves of Sylvester Williams of Trinidad and Tobago, who convened the first Pan-African meeting. We are reminding ourselves of Marcus Garvey. We are reminding ourselves of Pixlika Isaka Sene of South Africa. We are reminding ourselves of W.B. Du Bois. We are reminding ourselves of John Henry Clark. We are reminding ourselves of Malcolm X, of Martin Luther King Jr., of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. We are reminding ourselves of Bantu Stephen Biko. We are reminding ourselves of Julius Kambarage Nyerere. We are reminding ourselves of Amilcar Cabral Abel-Jassy. We are reminding ourselves of Ahmed Ben Bella, of Ahmed Sekou Toure, of Samora Moises Machel, of Agostino Neto, and all those great men, Winnie Madikizela Mandela. We are reminding ourselves. And therefore, when we come here on this occasion of the Pan-African Institute, we are reminding ourselves that we have philosophized for too long, moralized for too long, agonized for too long, complained for too long, criticized for too long, critiqued for too long, blamed others for too long. We have allowed ourselves to be defined for too long, and that the time is now to define ourselves. The time is now to organize beyond agonization. And that is why it gladdens my heart as I will, in the next 30 minutes, invite Commander-in-Chief Sello Malema to also invite to the stage individuals who will welcome him as he delivers his speech, because it is these individuals whom we start with, and through cross-fertilization of ideas, they are germinated the Pan-African Institute. Tony Nyanja. Joanne Mwangi Yelba. Sylvia Kasanga. If indeed they say there is a thorn among the roses, I am but that thorn. Behold the roses. That said, Juju, these are your people. Amandla, Maibuye, Maibuye. You don't know how to respond. When I say Amandla, you say Awet. When I say Maibuye, you say E Africa. And when I say E Africa, you say Maibuye. Amandla, Amandla, Maibuye, E Africa. Juju, speak to your people.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me take this opportunity to send revolutionary greetings to the esteemed Professor of this important university, lasting legacy that we stand to celebrate here today. The leadership and academic staff, our Vice Chancellor, the Chancellor is here, and all the staff members who are here today to celebrate with us. And we also want to send our revolutionary greetings to the leadership of our province, what we call a province, I hear you call it sub-national, the governor, and all these politically elected leaders who are here today. We are really grateful for your presence. Let me also send my greetings to the Lukenya University students and members of the community, members of the media and fellow Africans in Kenya, Africa. I regard no part of Africa as being foreign to me, because Africa, all of it belongs to me, and I belong to Africa. It is a humbling honor to be invited to address the launch of the prestigious Pan-African Institute, which is targeted at creating intellectual collaboration. Let us therefore begin by congratulating you on this initiative, which is long overdue in light of the importance of the continent to reclaim its intellectual and academic identity within the global community in general. We know that ideas are at the core of the African capacity to chart its own destiny within the community of the world. Intellectual sovereignty has to be forged through research and development that is steeped in African experiences, African problems, and African Academy have been part of the modalities of the broad draining of our resources. Because of lack of dedicated funding, many thinkers in the continent are taken in the general brain drain driven by Euro-American institutions. As we have seen over the decades, there is no way Euro-American is going to fund an intellectual project that will see Africa truly become intellectual, determine the agenda and control of our resources. It is also inspiring to see that our esteemed Prof. Lumumba and those who are joining him in this initiative have chosen our continent and Kenya in particular to establish an intellectual research and knowledge institution. Accordingly, our first duty is to call on sons and daughters of the continent, both based here and in the diaspora, to jealously fund this institute and ensure that it create and charts a unique Africa based on an original thought, because we have a duty to chart our own. Also inspired by the fact that the institute concept of Pan-Africanism include all people of African descent. That is, those in the continent, the Americans, they are found as an inferior race. Diaspora and all over the world. Please be kind to African people, for because they are a hated nation. Wherever they are being enslaved, they are being tortured, they are being harassed. No one shows them love. But you, as an African who claim to be a Pan-Africanist, you have a responsibility to show fellow Africans love and care. The violent, genocidal, and catastrophic transatlantic slave trade and colonialism are the historical twin towers that plugged the humanity of Africans into the dark night, which to this day seem to have no end in sight. The image of the African as a black and subhuman was forged through massive and violent enslavement of millions of African people sold in the Americas as properties of white colonial settlers. In the coastal and mainland villages of West Africa, through the gun, the dogs, and the spears, African communities were plundered, captured against their will, and chained like animals. At the ports of Ghana, those chained, naked, and malnourished bodies of men, women, and children were scaled, measured, and sold for gold, silver, or livestock. They were put in those gigantic ships that crossed thousands of kilometers of the massive body of violent and cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Millions will not survive the dangerous voyages on sea. They will die of disease, starvation, or pure mental illness. Many will be offloaded alive, thrown into the deep waters to ease navigating the storms of the violent seas. It is on those cold Atlantic Ocean's waters, deep in the bottom of the ocean, that many carcasses of African people, their bones lay rotten in chains and swallowed by the sea. Those who survived and on arrival in the Americas were forced to work in the different plantations of white men. From the voyage ships to the plantation, the image of an inferior African was being constructed through brutal force. Then began the violent colonial conquest for settlement aimed at our natural resources that defined our native continent. The white man sought to rule Africa and here designed a system of racial segregation, racial humiliation, racial abuse that lasted for many centuries. The colony and the plantation, with the voyage slave ships in the middle, were the perfect technologies of recreating the African into a subservient being whose only survival in the modern world must always be through white tutelage, supervision, and approval. The transatlantic slave trade, colonial conquest, and colonial rule are responsible for the zombification of the African soul and its intellectual damifica, and it's not handled their affairs without white supervision. As both an intellectual project and a program of revolutionary change, Pan-Africanism is first the recognition of this terrible history, which by all definition remains a world history that has cast the African into a global identity of inferiority amongst people of the world. Pan-Africanism is never forgotten noise of the painful cries of those captured slaves whose black bodies were swallowed by the Atlantic Ocean from the slave ships. It is the agonizing cry from the brutal violence suffered by the black slaves in the sugar, cotton, and corn plantations from Georgia to Sao Paulo. Pan-Africanism is also the resounding victory of the high revolution from 1781 to 1804, led by the greatest descendant of our continent, Toussaint Louverture. Together with his patrons, they bravely led the first and only successful slave revolution in human history, defeating a combined European force commanded by a France Napoleon Bonaparte. It is the bravery of those African former slaves who will define citizenship on a racial definition of blackness, declaring that Haiti belongs to black people regardless of the color of their skin. Pan-Africanism is also the anger emanating from the countless defeats suffered by the patrons, the brave soldiers like those of Mau Mau and Bambata rebellion, defeated at the hands of the brutal British colonial forces. It is the intellectual heritage of Marcus Garvey, W.E. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Harriet Tubman, Pixley Isaac Aseme, Charlotte Mateke, Winnie Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, Seiko Tore, Julius Nyerere, Haile Selassie, C.L.R.A. James, Frantz Fanon, Thomas Sankara, and today our own Prof. Lumumba, together with us, must carry the mantle of the African Pan-Africanist cause. Pan-Africanism is a set of ideas written in chains with blood, spear, and the unforgiving guns of the sons and daughters from the Algerian Revolution to the Battle of Kutokonavan. It is the one-party state of Africa as a whole, as professed by Marcus Garvey. It is Ami Caesarius negritude, Kwame Nkrumah's African socialism, Steve Biko's black consciousness, Julius Nyerere Ujamaa. It is also Mbeki's African renaissance, all based on forging a unity of African people who are formed by the same history and must seek after common destiny. It is the architectural achievement from the pyramid of Egypt to the cities of Mapungubwe. It is the industrial invasion by Garrett Morgan, traffic lights, Frederick Jones, refrigerated trucks, and Alexandra Miles, automatic elevator doors. It is the cultural movement in jazz, R&B, reggae, funk, blues, kwaito, juju Nigeria, chimorenga Zimbabwe, makosa and benga Kenya. It is the novel Things Fall Apart, The Devil on the Cross, Maru, The Trails of Brother, Songs of Solomon, and Notes of Native Son. It is the artwork of Gerald Sekoto, Chike Anyako, Oche Okeke, Edmonia Lewis, the religious movement of Bishop Lekanyane, Manku, and Shembe, the Coptics of Egypt and the Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, as well as denominations from Tunisia, Nigeria, Kenya, all deserve a place in the rich thinking and knowledge about Africa and its people. It is true that Pan-African call has also been prophetic, carrying important cautions that those who conducted the project for the rebirth of the African continent in the post-colonial context have not heeded to. In the pages of Frantz Fanon, Richard of the Earth, lays a critique which, since independence in the 1950s to this day, leaders of African people have failed to give programmatic response to this call. First and foremost, the Pan-African call is a call for African unity, not cooperation, collaboration, or coexistence. Many of you confuse the unity of Africa to mean collaboration or cooperation. We don't want to cooperate. We don't want to collaborate. We want to be one, and being one means we must share the same vision and the same direction. Yet many over the past half a century have chosen cooperation, which has given way to neo-colonialism. That is to say, for African leaders to continue colonialism without direct rule by colonialists. The launch of the Pan-African Institute right here in Kenya must help us intellectually to shift towards revolutionary Pan-Africanism, contribute to resolving some of the historical mistakes, blunders committed by post-liberation movements. We should state clear here that while the formation of the Organization of African Unity was a step in the right direction, the fact that the founding conference failed to unite the African continent is a historical blunder. President Kwame Nkrumah, Seko Tore, and Emperor Haile Selassie prophetically said that the failure to unite the African continent will give rise to the neo-colonialism and that African continent will perish. The revolutionary Pan-Africanist ideological and political diagnosis of the future was correct. The future is here. 50 years later, we know that we remain visitors in our own continent. We know that our resources benefit Euro-American than our own people. This is despite most African countries gaining independence from colonial rule since 1957. Massive, huge tracts of land, our mineral resources, our animals, our oceans are still owned and controlled by the colonial masters. There are no countries in the entire African continent that have gained full economic emancipation and independence. And this includes Ghana, which was the first to lead the road. Till to date, it can't claim that Africans in Ghana own the means of production. In 2016 report titled The New Colonialism reveals that there are 101 British companies listed on the London Stock Exchange that control and identified 1.5 trillion US dollars worth of resources in Africa in just 5 commodities: oil, diamond, coal, and platinum. This is a very conservative figure since it includes resources listed by only some companies. Many companies do not provide the figures of the resources they control. And majority of these companies that do not tell us what they control and what they own in Africa are found in DRC, because they are the ones who fuel the divisions in DRC. They are the ones who fuel the DRC, and they are stealing the resources of DRC because they know there is no proper accountability for such resources. The War on Want report on neocolonialism further illustrates that the fact that these 101 companies control and own the following key resources on our continent: 6.6 billion barrels of oil, currently worth 276 billion US dollars. They control 79.5 million ounces of gold, worth 119 billion US dollars. They control 699.3 million carats of diamonds, worth 134 billion of US dollars. 3.6 billion tons of coal, worth 216 billion US dollars. 287 million ounces of platinum, worth 305 billion US dollars. These are the numbers that reflect British neocolonialism in the African continent. I've not spoken about what French companies are doing. The Portuguese continue to play a significant role in the economy of Mozambique and Angola. The French continue to micromanage all the countries that were their colonies, except the recent liberated zones of Mali and Burkina Faso. Comrades, the French are brutal, to a point that post-colonialism, they still make certain African countries to pay colonial tax to France. The French are brutal because some of their former colonies, their reserve banks are still in France. They are not in control of their own economy, yet they claim to have an independence. We, as progressive missionary actions of fighters who are removing puppets of French imperialism from political office and power. Not all these actions are revolutionary, because we must be careful of French-sponsored coups in Africa, where we think there is a revolution taking place in Guinea-Conakry, only to find that there is a French puppet who seeks to replace those who were there before. There is nothing revolutionary about the Guinea-Conakry coup. We ought to separate that there can never be a revolutionary coup that reinforces French imperialism on African soil. Anyone who comes into political office under the pretext that they are fighting a French puppet, while knowing they are the French puppet themselves, must be isolated by progressive Pan-Africanists. All French soldiers and military must leave the African continent, and this also should have African Command Center of the USA. We don't want the army of America. We don't want the army of France here. We don't want the army of anyone. We want African army on African soil. Africanist Institute should therefore provide ideological, political, and technical weapons to all progressive forces of the African continent to fight against colonialism. There is a political trend that is being accepted by African heads of state and government, where one country convenes all 54 heads of African states and government. The United States of America, France, China, Russia, and United Kingdom convene all 54 heads of states and government for a meeting, and they all go following each other like Casey and Jojo as a head of states to listen to one head of state, 51 of them. Sometimes they disrespect them to a point where they put all 54 heads of states of Africa in a school bus to go and listen to one head of state. What happened to these men? Because all of them, majority of them are men. What happened to these fathers who go and bow combined to one man? Even if he's Putin, why would they all follow each other and go and listen to one person? What happened to their dignity and their authority as leadership? They must have leadership qualities to know that Putin is equal to them, that China is equal to their own single country, irrespective of their size. Size is that sovereignty will respect the president of that sovereign country as an individual. Kwame Nkrumah noticed this when he said colonialism also means the following: breaking up former large united colonial territories into a number of small non-viable states incapable of independent development. An external directed economic system and political policy, the state being obligated to take the manufactured products of the imperialist power to the exclusion of competing products from elsewhere. Payments towards the cost of running the state to ensure control over government policies, and foreign capital is used for the exploitation rather than the development of less developed regions. Governor, on my way here, we saw how the people here are working the land. We saw that there is no piece of land here that is not being utilized to the benefit of our people. But the question remains, where do these people sell these things? Because they can't consume all of them. Yes, they must produce to feed themselves and feed the whole Kenya and feed the continent and the world. Is the government buying food that is produced fresh from this soil, or do we have companies that are owned by white people in Nairobi who bring finished products into the land that has got products that can be bought directly from our own people? We say people must work the land. After they work the land, their own governments in Africa do not procure from those people. Because if it does not have a white color, they don't like it. Our leaders like their colonizers more than us. That's why they always seek after anything that looks like colonizers. 10 years ago, we as revolutionary activists and visionaries from south of African continent started a revolutionary socialist movement and Pan-Africanist movement, the EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters. When we formed the EFF in South Africa, we told them that our organization is not for South Africa. Our organization is for all Africans. And we said this. We said this during xenophobic attacks of our people in South Africa, where people were being attacked because they come from outside South Africa. We chose to side with our people because we're necessitated by the fact that we love ourselves. And if you love yourself, you'll see a person from Tanzania in you. You'll see a person from Nigeria in you, because we are one thing. We as the economic emancipation movement did not only say we are Pan-Africanist. In one of our cardinal pillars, we said South Africa must engage in massive investment of economic development in Africa. Because if you keep on saying people are coming to South Africa, are looking for jobs, are going to take jobs from us, we can stop this thing of people coming to South Africa. How do you do it? Go and build massive economic development in African countries so that people can stay where they are and they can feed themselves from where they are. No one wants to leave his own home into some strange place. We leave our homes because we're searching for greener pastures. If there is an ESCOM in South Africa which is failing to give us electricity, but when it was well and still running according to how we wanted it, ESCOM had the capacity to electrify the whole of Africa. Why are you not going into the African continent and electrify the whole of Africa? Why is there no train that moves from Cape to Cairo, making sure that trade in Africa and movement of goods, there's no one who can leave Lusaka to go and stay in South Africa. They can get into a train, go and do what they want to do in South Africa and come back home and develop their own countries. We must make sure that this Africa is linked together. We must violently demolish the borders that exist between our countries, because those are not our borders. You cannot worship a border between Tanzania and Kenya and come and sit in this hall and say you are a Pan-Africanist. A Pan-Africanist means the first task is to get rid of colonial borders so that we bring Africa together in practical terms. I don't know if President William Ruto means it, because he said so many things and I can't locate him these days, because the things he said during election and the things he's doing now are two different things. I don't know. Because I heard him saying we need to do away with the dollar and build our own currency. But his actions are not speaking to anything of doing away with the dollar. The latest being putting a red carpet for a murderer, a person who killed the Kenyan people coming into this country, receiving a red carpet and being saluted by our own army. This is not a Kenyan army, it's not a colonialist army. The Kenyan army is a product of the Mau Mau rebellion. And those who killed our people in the Mau Mau rebellion cannot be saluted by the same army of the children of those who were killed during Mau Mau rebellion. We have a duty to stay true to the cause. We have a duty to remind the king and Britain of what they did to us. Indeed, he shows no remorse. He says this was bad, it shouldn't have happened. But he runs short of, I apologize, I am sorry. He will never say he is sorry, for because he thinks that his race makes him superior and he's not qualified to apologize to those who are junior to him. We call upon the Kenyan government to be firm and to decide what they want to be. Do they want to be Pan-Africanist, or do they want to be proponents of neo-colonialism? You can't have it both. Only one call must be made, and that call is of Pan-Africanism. It's not easy being a Pan-Africanist, for because the mindset of our people is so colonized, they are going to isolate you. They are going to look at you as if you are a mad person. They are going to look at you as if you are unreasonable. But it is a cause worth pursuing because of the generation that came before us. We don't want visas. We want one currency for Africa, because our currency can be more powerful than the pound and the dollar combined, because London has got the biggest storage of gold, yet they don't have a single smallest mine of gold. Their economy is based on our minerals. And if we safeguard our minerals and protect them and say out of these minerals, we are producing a currency that is going to compete internationally, we stand a good chance. We need African Central Bank. We need African Monetary Zone. We need African military combat, because these pockets of wars that are happening in Africa are not of our own making. They are sponsored wars so that those who continue to steal our resources can do so uninterrupted as we fight ourselves, amongst ourselves. So we need a military, a common defense system, the African High Command that will ensure the stability and security of Africa. We equally need a binding African court to deal with dictators who only exist in Africa to feed their friends and families. Those people must be prosecuted the African way, because ISIS is not meant to fight any crime, it's meant to pursue political fights. That's why ISIS will not declare a warrant of arrest against Netanyahu, but can declare a warrant of arrest against Putin, who has not bombed a hospital, who has not bombed a refugee camp, who has not declared a war on a certain ethnic group. We as Revolutionary Economic Emancipation Movement also associate with what Guinea's president, Sekou Touré, said in 1963. He said, above all, we must avoid the pitfalls of tribalism. There is tribalism taking place in DRC. All our leaders have taken a platform to support or to be against this one or that one. They've spoken on Palestine. They've spoken on the war between Russia and Ukraine. But I'm still to hear the stand of President William Ruto about the ongoing DRC, where people are fighting over territorial expansion and plunder of resources, and blacks are killing other black people, and we pretend that we don't see. It's important as leaders of states and governments to always condemn violence and war, especially if it is barbaric and informed by tribalism and unjustifiable territorial expansions. Before you can speak about other countries, charity begins at home. Let there be peace in DRC. Without peace in DRC, Kenya will never know peace, because these rascals are going to learn from those wars in DRC and want to import them into Kenya. You have a duty to stop them there before they come into Kenya. Comrades, we will make sure the struggle of all immigrants, most of whom are economic migrants and asylum seekers in South Africa. We will never. In South Africa, they say to us, if you want to be elected, you must declare war on illegal immigrants. And illegal immigrants, they mean Africans. We have refused as the EFF that we will never declare war on any immigrant, illegal or legal. Illegal according to whose law? Because if you are illegal, you should have violated a certain law. Which African law did these people violate when they came to this side of Africa? Because they are still in the same territory of Africa. They are at home when they are in South Africa. We wish to tell them we're going to elections next year in South Africa. We wish to reiterate that. And we tell them all the time, if they want to elect us on the basis of xenophobia, they can keep their votes. We are not disparate for votes. We are disparate for the unity of Africa. And that's what we want to achieve in our lifetime. Remove the visas as an immediate step. And I heard Kenya is going to do that by December. Perhaps I must come back here in December unannounced. So to test if indeed President William Ruto means exactly what he said when he said there won't be visas in December. Maybe I must sneak in and test without applying for any visa and just give them the South African passport and say, I'm coming home. Mama, we want to commit in front of you and all the dignitaries who are here and the students that this Pan-African Institute will be supported by the EFF. We will ensure that indeed it has got a home in South Africa. We will not only support it verbally, we will put money into it, we will pay the staff members of the institute, we will also pay the offices of the institute, because we believe that we must speak one language as Africa. We will donate the books here at the university to ensure that every African writer has got his or her book in the Pan-Africanist Institute. Let's all spread the gospel. Indeed, it was not a mistake to launch it here in the rural areas, because no one must be left behind. If you can carry on your back the rural communities, you have no any other option to go anywhere except to go to the urban. But if you start from rural, there's no way you can cover the urban. But if you start from the urban, you are going to be reluctant to come to the rural. We are starting here to liberate our people in the rural areas, and we're going to the urban to ensure that everybody hears the message. Tell President Ruto that the people of Palestine are what Mau Mau was. Tell President Ruto that the people of South Africa are what Palestinian people are today. Where our land get encroached, where our land just get taken, and we get killed on our own land, we get tortured on our own land, we get imprisoned on our own land. When we fight, they say we are terrorists. This Nelson Mandela you celebrate, for 27 years, he was in prison because he was a terrorist. What crime did he commit, which the Palestinians are not committing? His crime was to fight for the liberation of the people of South Africa and the oppressed world all over, including the people of Palestine. It can't be correct that President Ruto, knowing the history of this country and the history of South Africa, comes and tells us that it's with Israelites. Our war is not on Jewish people. Our war is not on pregnant women, Jewish pregnant women. Our war is not on Jewish children. Our war is against a Zionist apartheid state of Israel, and that's what we are fighting. So if he got money from some Jewish person, we are not fighting that funder of his. We are fighting the state of Israel. We are not fighting individuals. We are fighting the state of Israel. At the age of 9 years, the Boers walked into my house and turned everything upside down, stripped my mother naked. When I see what those children of Palestine are going through, I can immediately relate that this is what apartheid looks like. We cannot be Pan-Africanist if we can't associate with the oppressed nation. Our Pan-Africanism is based on the basis that we are an oppressed nation ourselves. And everywhere else where we see an oppressed person, that person is our sister, that person is our mother, that person is our father, because we are not free until the whole world is free from imperialism and colonialism. I don't know if you'll regret inviting me after this. But my problem is that I tell my truth as is. And I say it to authorities without fear or favor. Till today, no one has ever sued me legally successful. Till today, no one has imprisoned me, because you can't imprison or sue the truth. The truth will always prevail. Comrades, we must make sure that as we live here, our sympathy is with the oppressed people. Look at Cuba. Its crime was to choose a different economic system to what America has chosen. And then they are under more than 60 years of economic embargo. What crime did the people of Western Sahara commit against Morocco? We are at the center of speaking the truth as a Pan-Africanist institute, because we've got the ear of the continent and the diaspora and the whole world. And this organization we are launching today, Prof, will live forever and ever, because you only speak the truth yourself to power. And you always make us politicians to want to check if indeed we are still on the right track. So an institution established by a person like you, we are guaranteed that it will live for long and it will live for generations to come. That's why we are proud to be here. I was not brought by a plane here. I was not brought by a car here. I was driven by the spirits of those people who were dumped in the oceans. And when they were dumping them in the oceans, their cries are still crying loud till today. They did not dump them in the ocean only. They dumped them chained on their hands and their feet, and they could not fight. When the sharks were eating them in those oceans, they could not fight. Even if you know that today I'm going to die, but it is always good to die fighting. That you must hold the shark even when you know it's going to swallow me. I must die fighting. Those people who died in the ocean said to me, you ought to arrive there. For because what you guys are going to start there is that which is going to seek reparations for us. As you leave this place and going back to your home, remember the people who died in the plantation, beaten, treated like dogs. Remember all of those slaves that asked for help and they never found help. But you must say to them in spirit, the help has arrived. And that help we declare today that will fight the battles of the heroes and heroines of Mau Mau, of Bambata Rebellion, of the slaves. This Pan-Africanist Institute must be at the center of demanding reparations for all the suffering Africans have gone through because of colonialism. We must teach our people that we are not beggars. When we ask for reparation, we are not asking for donation. We are asking for what was stolen from us to be returned so that we can prosper and become a better nation. Thank you very much.
Zibram Konto, Alaye, Onke Laban, Ebaget, Seltatile, Elaget, shoot to kill, Yamasa, shoot to kill, Kilawe, shoot to kill, Yamasa. Yamasa. Hey, ta, ta, hey, ta, ta. Zibrakoto Alliance. Sentatile, Laget. Sentatile, Laget. Hey, ta, ta. Yeah.
Let's settle. We have a small session remaining. We have a small session remaining. Let's settle. Okay, Kitino. It is. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's settle down. We want to get to a small session. Chief guests, Julius Malema, we want to unveil the Pan-African Institute. That's a small assignment that you have before we get to a cake ceremony where we'll be led by Ines, a Royal Ines. And the cake is already here with us. So I want to invite you to come and take us through this. And you need to be flagged by PLO, Governor Putula Kilonzo. Please accompany the chief guest to come and unveil the Pan-African Institute. I don't know whether you have a word for it. Trustees will come, the Chancellor and even the Chair of the Council. Kindly join the chief guests in unveiling the Pan-African Institute. Yeah, we also have Senator Manzo here with us. Senator Manzo will join us for the unveiling of the Pan-African Institute. Chief guest, something?
Okay, say something and then allow him to make the declaration.
Yeah, thank you very much. We now are at a stage when we formally invite the Commander-in-Chief, the Honorable Julius Malema, to declare the Pan-African Institute formally open. Juju.
Thank you very much once more, Prof. PLO, LUMUMBA, and all our guests who are here. Let me take this opportunity, Prof, to invite you to be on the other side and to officially reveal and launch the Pan-Africanist Institute.
Thank you. Thank you. 10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Now, very quickly. Board of Trustees. All the international guests kindly come after the Board of Trustees. Then the LUSA. The LUSA would want to recognize you also.
Kichi kichi kichima Zipram konto alaye Okay laban Ebaget Tatile Elaget Shudid Yamasa Jut to kid Kilawe Jut to kid Yamasa Zipra Konto Alliance Sentatile
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The guests from Zambia, Liberia, Uganda, Nancy, from Uganda, Nigeria, from Kenya, Three minutes only. 3 minutes. Okay, we now start. We just